There's something about long road trips at night that makes the world feel different. The way the headlights stretch into the dark, barely cutting through the black void ahead. The way small towns appear out of nowhere, glowing in the distance like mirages. I used to love the open road, but after what happened last fall, I never stop at motels in the middle of nowhere, because some places don't want you to leave. It was November, and I was driving from Colorado to Idaho for work. I had made this trip a dozen times before, and I always planned my stops carefully. But this time, I was running late. A last-minute delay forced me to leave later than I wanted, and before I knew it, it was past midnight. The highway stretched ahead, nothing but dense fog and empty road. I had planned to stop at a motel in the next town, but after nearly an hour of driving, I realized something wasn't right. I should have reached the town by now. Instead, the fog had only gotten thicker, and my GPS stopped working. My stomach tightened. I checked my phone. No signal. I hadn't seen another car in over an hour. That's when I spotted the sign. A glowing red neon sign flickering through the fog. Sunrise Motel, vacancy. I sighed in relief. I had never heard of the place, but at this point, I didn't care. I just needed a few hours of sleep. That was my first mistake. The parking lot was empty. The motel itself was a single-story building, its faded yellow paint peeling beneath the buzzing neon light. It looked old, like it had been there for decades. I hesitated. Then, the lobby light turned on, like someone had been waiting for me. I stepped inside. The front desk was covered in dust, the air stale, like the place hadn't been used in years. Then, from the back room, a man appeared. Tall, thin, with pale skin and dark, sunken eyes. He didn't smile, just slid a key across the counter. Room 3. His voice was flat, almost robotic. Cash only. I hesitated, but I was too tired to argue. I handed him a few bills, grabbed the key, and stepped back outside. The fog had gotten thicker, and in the distance, I swore I saw figures standing in the mist. The motel room was basic. Old carpet, faded wallpaper, a small box TV sitting on a wooden dresser. The bathroom light flickered when I turned it on. I sat on the bed, exhaling slowly. I told myself I was just tired, that everything would look normal in the morning. But then, I noticed something. There was no mirror in the room, just a large, empty frame hanging above the dresser, like someone had taken it out. A bad feeling settled in my chest. I grabbed my phone, planning to check the GPS again, but now, the screen showed something different. Not a map, just static, like an old television, buzzing softly in the silent room. I stared at it, confusion twisting in my gut. Then, out of the corner of my eye, the closet door creaked open. I froze. The door had been closed when I walked in. Now, it was open just a crack. A deep blackness stretched beyond it, the kind of darkness that didn't look natural, like something was standing just beyond the doorframe, waiting. I reached for the lamp. The light flickered. Then, the TV turned on. The screen was nothing but static, but in the faint flickering glow, I saw something move. A shadow in the closet. A shape that wasn't mine. Then, in a voice that wasn't mine, a whisper crackled through the speaker. "You shouldn't have checked in." I bolted for the door, my hands shaking as I fumbled with the lock. I ripped it open and stumbled into the fog. The parking lot was still empty, but now the lobby lights were off, like the place had been abandoned for years. I turned back to my room, and for the first time, I noticed there was no number on my door. No room 3, just a blank wooden door, like the room had never existed. I ran to my car, yanking the door open, my breath coming in sharp gasps. The motel behind me was fading, disappearing into the mist. I turned the key. Nothing. The engine wouldn't start. Then, a slow knocking. From the back seat. I didn't turn around, didn't breathe. Then, a voice. "You're not supposed to leave." The car roared to life. I slammed the gas, peeling out of the lot and speeding back onto the road. The neon sign flickered in my mirror, then disappeared completely. I didn't stop driving until the fog lifted, and I reached the next town. The next morning, I told myself it was a nightmare. I pulled up my GPS, trying to find the motel. Nothing. No Sunrise Motel. No record of it existing. I even checked Google Street View where I swore I had stopped, but all I found was an empty lot. Like the motel had never been there at all. I don't drive long distances at night anymore. I don't stop at motels I don't recognize. And sometimes, when the fog is thick, when the road is empty, I swear I can still see it. That flickering neon sign. Sunrise Motel, vacancy. Like it's waiting for the next traveler who gets lost in the mist. There's a strange kind of peace that comes with driving at night. The world is quiet. The road stretches endlessly ahead, bathed in the soft glow of headlights. But last summer, I learned the truth. Some roads don't lead anywhere, and some highways, you can never leave. It was July, and I was driving from New Mexico to Nevada for a job interview. I had left late in the evening, figuring I could drive straight through the night and arrive by morning. The highway was empty, the landscape nothing but desert and distant mountains. For the first few hours, everything was normal. Then, my GPS glitched. It started subtly. The route recalculated, rerouting me down an alternate highway. I didn't think much of it. After all, sometimes GPS updates with a faster route. So, I took the exit. And that was my first mistake. The road was narrower, older, with cracked asphalt and faded road lines barely visible under my headlights. Still, I kept driving. Then, the radio cut out. The soft hum of music was suddenly replaced by static. A low, crackling noise filled the car, deep and hollow. I turned the dial. Nothing but dead air. A sense of unease crept up my spine. I checked my phone. No service. That's when I saw it. A mile marker on the side of the road. The reflective numbers flashed in my headlights. Mile 46. I kept driving. The next sign appeared 20 minutes later. Mile 46. My grip on the wheel tightened. That wasn't possible. I had been driving for nearly half an hour. I should have been much further. I shook my head. Maybe I was just tired. Maybe I had read the sign wrong. So I kept driving. Then, 20 minutes later, another sign. Mile 46. A cold chill settled in my chest. I slowed down, my pulse quickening. Something was wrong. I glanced in my rearview mirror, and my stomach dropped, because behind me, in the distance, I could see the red glow of taillights, the same ones I had passed miles ago. It didn't make sense. There had been no turns, no exits. Yet somehow, I was looping, driving the same stretch of highway over and over. I hit the gas, trying to break whatever was happening. The desert blurred past me. The road stretched on, and then, another sign. Mile 46. Panic set in. I checked my fuel gauge, half a tank left. I wasn't sure how much time had passed. An hour? 2? Then, up ahead, I saw headlights. A car was coming toward me. Relief flooded my chest. I flashed my high beams, signaling for help. The other car did the same. Then, my blood ran cold, because as it passed, I saw myself behind the wheel. It was my car, my headlights, my reflection staring back at me in the driver's seat. And the moment we passed, my radio turned back on, but the music wasn't playing. Instead, through the crackling static, I heard my own voice. "You can't leave." I slammed the brakes. The tires skidded against the asphalt, the car jerking to a stop. My breath came in sharp gasps as I sat there, frozen. Then, the road changed. The empty highway was gone. Now, ahead of me, was an intersection, a turnoff that hadn't been there before. And standing at the edge of the road was a man. He was tall, dressed in a dark suit. His face was pale, almost featureless under the glow of my headlights. He raised one hand and pointed toward the turnoff, like he was giving me a choice. I didn't hesitate. I yanked the wheel, taking the exit. And the moment my tires hit the new road, the radio cut out. The air felt lighter. And when I looked in my rearview mirror, the man was gone. I didn't stop driving until I reached a gas station miles down the road. I pulled in, my hands still shaking. The attendant, a middle-aged woman, gave me a strange look. "Long night?" she asked. I swallowed, forcing myself to speak. I think I got lost back there." She frowned. "Where?" "The highway, mile 46. I kept seeing the same signs over and over. Her face palmed. Then, quietly, she said, "That road was closed years ago. I don't drive at night anymore. I don't trust detours. And sometimes, when I check my GPS, I still see it. Mile 46. Like it's waiting for the next traveler to take the wrong turn." Road trips are supposed to be about freedom, adventure, and discovery. But some roads take you places you were never meant to go. Some places you were never meant to leave. And some passengers were never invited in the first place. It was June 2017, and I was driving with my 9-year-old son, Lucas, to West Virginia to visit family. It was a long, exhausting drive. The AC in my car had stopped working, and the summer heat had turned the car into a moving oven. Lucas was restless, shifting in his seat, complaining about how hot it was. Tension was high. By the 6th hour, we had stopped talking altogether. Then, at around 9 p.m., Lucas started squirming in his seat. "Dad, I need to go to the bathroom." I sighed. We were still on the interstate, nowhere near a town. "Can't you hold it for a bit?" I asked, exasperated. Lucas shook his head vigorously. "I gotta go now." There was no use arguing. Then, out of the corner of my eye, a blue highway sign flashed past. "Rest area, 1 mile." I took the exit without thinking. That was my first mistake. The rest stop was small and isolated. A brick building with 2 bathrooms, a couple of vending machines, and a single white pickup truck parked nearby. But no other cars. Something about the place made me uneasy. Lucas didn't seem to notice. He threw the door open and sprinted for the bathroom. I left the car running, figuring we'd be back on the road in minutes. I leaned back in my seat, rubbing my temples. Then, after about a minute, the back door opened. I expected Lucas to say something, but he was silent. I sighed, gripping the steering wheel. We had argued earlier, and I wasn't sure what to say now, so I said nothing. I put the car in drive, ready to pull out. Then, I noticed something. In my rearview mirror, Lucas was still inside the restroom, and someone else was sitting in my back seat. A cold dread settled over me. The figure in the back seat was tall, unmoving, their heads slightly tilted. They sat perfectly still, like a mannequin, just staring at the seat in front of them. A part of me thought maybe, just maybe, Lucas had come back while I wasn't looking. But deep down, I knew better. Then, in my mirror, I saw Lucas step out of the restroom, and I froze. I couldn't breathe. The person in my back seat was not my son. I didn't turn around, didn't speak, just kept my eyes locked on the mirror. Lucas was walking toward the car, completely unaware. I gripped the steering wheel. Then, the figure in my back seat began to move. Slowly, their head turned toward me. A long, unnatural movement, as if their neck wasn't quite right. They tilted their head, their face obscured by shadows. Then, I heard it. A click. The sound of the back door unlocking. That was enough. I lunged for the door handle, throwing myself out of the car. "Lucas, run!" I screamed. Lucas froze in place, confused. Then, from behind me, the back door creaked open. I didn't turn around. I grabbed Lucas by the wrist, yanking him away from the car. Then, headlights flashed behind us. A vehicle was pulling in fast. A white pickup truck, the same one I had seen parked earlier. The truck skidded to a stop, and a burly man jumped out. "Get away from the car," he yelled. I was already backing away, shielding Lucas behind me. The man reached into his glove box, yanking something out. Then, I saw it. A gun. For a moment, everything slowed. The rest stoplights buzzed. The air was thick and suffocating. And from the corner of my eye, I saw something tall and thin slip out of my car. It was fast. Too fast. It sprinted toward the woods behind the rest stop, disappearing into the darkness. The man aimed his gun, but it was too late. The thing was gone. For a long moment, nobody moved. The truck driver let out a shaky breath. I turned to Lucas, checking him over. He was pale, but okay. Then, finally, I forced myself to ask, "What the hell was that?" The man lowered the gun, glancing at me. Then, in a voice that sent chills down my spine, he said, "You picked up the wrong passenger." He went on to explain. For years, there had been stories about this highway. People stopping at rest areas only to find someone else in their car when they returned. No one knew who or what they were, because no one who ever looked directly at them was ever seen again. I didn't sleep that night, didn't stop until I reached my destination. I never reported it, because what could I even say? That something had been in my car? That I had almost taken it with me? No, I didn't want to know what would have happened if I had kept driving, if I had never looked back. I don't stop at rest areas anymore. I don't leave my car unlocked. And sometimes, when I check my rearview mirror, just for a second, I think I see a figure sitting in the back seat. A shadow, a shape, waiting for the next driver who doesn't check their mirror in time. Road trips are supposed to be exciting, an adventure, a way to escape the routine of daily life. But sometimes, the road takes you somewhere you were never meant to go. And if you're lucky, you never look back. It was June 2017, and I was driving through Tennessee, making my way back home to Ohio after a short visit with family. I had planned everything perfectly: snacks, gas stops, even music playlists to keep me entertained during the drive. But, of course, nothing ever goes as planned. By the 6th hour, the sun had already disappeared behind the trees. My GPS was still directing me along the interstate, but something felt off. The road was empty. I hadn't seen another car in nearly 20 minutes. Then, my gas light came on, and that's when I saw it. A blue highway sign. Rest stop, 2 miles. It was the first sign of civilization in miles. I didn't think twice, and that was my first mistake. The rest stop looked normal enough. A small brick building with 2 bathrooms, a couple of vending machines, dimly lit parking lot, and one other car, a large white pickup truck parked near the tree line. I pulled in, stretching my arms as I stepped out. A gust of wind rushed past me, and I shivered. Something about the air felt too still, too quiet, but I shook off the feeling. I was just being paranoid. I made my way toward the restroom, leaving my car running because I didn't plan on being inside for long. As I passed the pickup truck, I glanced inside. It was empty. No driver, no passengers, just a single jacket draped across the front seat. I don't know why, but the sight of that jacket sent a cold chill down my spine. Still, I kept walking. I had just reached the bathroom door when I heard it, a car door slamming shut. My heart jumped. I spun around, but there was no one there. The pickup truck was still empty, and yet, I could have sworn I heard something. I forced myself to ignore it and pushed open the rusty metal door to the restroom. Inside, the lights flickered, casting long shadows along the cracked tile floor. A single stall door was closed. I exhaled, stepping toward the sink. Then, from inside the stall, a slow creaking sound, like someone shifting their weight. I froze. Sorry. Didn't realize someone was in here. Silence. Then, the stall door clicked unlocked. I didn't wait. I bolted out the door so fast my foot slipped on the wet pavement. That's when I saw it. My car door was open, and someone was sitting in my passenger seat. My stomach dropped. I hadn't seen or heard anyone approach my car. And yet, there they were. A man, completely still, hands folded in his lap. His face was pale, his eyes staring straight ahead. I took one step closer, and he turned his head toward me, smiling. I didn't think, didn't breathe. I just ran. I sprinted toward my car, ripped the door open, and slammed my hand against the lock button. The man didn't move, didn't blink. He just sat there, smiling. Then, slowly, he reached into his coat pocket. I didn't wait to see what he was grabbing. I threw the car into reverse and peeled out of the lot, tires screeching against the pavement. My heart was pounding, my breath coming in short gasps. I didn't look in the mirror, didn't check if he was still there. I just drove. It wasn't until I reached a busy gas station nearly an hour later that I finally let myself breathe. My hands were shaking as I reached for my phone, ready to call the police. But then, I noticed something sitting on my passenger seat. A jacket, the same one I saw in the pickup truck, and inside the pocket, a set of car keys that didn't belong to me. I left my car running and ran inside the gas station, my stomach in knots. The attendant gave me a weird look as I rushed to the counter. "Dude, you okay?" he asked. I swallowed hard. I stopped at a rest area a few miles back. There was a guy. The man's expression changed instantly. "Which rest area?" I blinked. "The one near." "There is no rest area out there." I shook my head. "No, I was just there." There was a pickup truck, a vending machine. The attendant's face paled. "That place burned down 5 years ago. I don't drive alone at night anymore. I don't take random exits, no matter how tired I am. And sometimes, when I look at the passenger seat of my car, I swear I can still see the faint imprint. Like someone was sitting there. Like someone's still waiting for the next driver who stops at the wrong place." There's something eerie about driving alone at night. The vast darkness surrounding you, the isolation, the way your headlights barely cut through the abyss ahead. But last summer, I learned the most terrifying truth of all. Some places only exist when they want to. And if you're unlucky enough to stop there, you might never leave. It was August, and I was driving from Utah to Oregon to help my sister move. The plan was simple: leave early, drive straight through, and arrive by sunrise. But, of course, things didn't go as planned. By the time the sun set, I had only just crossed into Idaho, exhausted, my eyes burning from staring at the road too long. I decided to push on for another hour before pulling over for gas and a quick rest. That was my first mistake. The road stretched ahead, deserted and endless, with nothing but the faint glow of the moon above me. Then, finally, a gas station appeared in the distance. A small, old-fashioned station, its neon sign flickering. "Gas and goods, last stop for 100 miles. That should have been my first red flag, but I was too tired to care. I pulled in, shutting off my engine. The place was completely empty. No cars, no workers, just a single light buzzing above the store entrance. I hesitated. Something about the place felt wrong, but my gas tank was nearly empty. I had no choice. I stepped inside. The air was stale, thick with the smell of dust and old wood. The aisles were lined with snacks, all covered in a thin layer of grime, like they had been sitting there for years. Then, from behind the counter, a man appeared, tall, thin, dressed in a faded gas station uniform. He stared at me for a long moment before finally saying, "Need gas?" His voice was flat, hollow, like he was reading from a script. I forced a smile. "Yeah, pump number 2. He nodded once, but didn't say anything else. Then, slowly, he turned and walked into the back room, disappearing behind a curtain. I waited and waited. Minutes passed. No sound, no movement. I cleared my throat, shifting uncomfortably. Something about the store felt off. The clock above the counter wasn't moving. The freezer door in the corner was open a crack, but there was no cold air coming out. And the snacks on the shelves? They all expired decades ago. My stomach tightened. I turned to leave. Then, the power cut out. The entire store plunged into darkness. For a moment, I stood frozen, my breath caught in my throat. Then, somewhere from the back room, I heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, coming toward me. I bolted for the door. The second I stepped outside, the lights flickered back on. The gas station looked normal again, like nothing had happened. But my gut told me something was very, very wrong. I sprinted to my car, not even bothering to pump the gas. That's when I noticed. The attendant was standing at the window now, watching me, smiling. My hands shook as I started the engine. I threw the car into reverse, tires screeching against the pavement. As I sped away, I stole one last glance in the mirror, and my blood ran cold. The gas station was gone, vanished, like it had never been there at all. I didn't stop driving until I reached a major truck stop an hour later. I pulled in, my heart still hammering against my ribs. The clerk inside must have noticed my pale face, because he asked, "You okay, man?" I swallowed hard. There was the gas station, about 50 miles back. It just disappeared. The clerk's face palmed. "You mean gas and goods?" I nodded. His eyes darkened. "That place burned down 20 years ago. I don't take back roads anymore." I don't stop at isolated gas stations, and sometimes on long drives, I think I see it, that flickering neon sign, waiting for the next driver to pull in for gas.